What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about PlayStation versus Xbox, but because of a very strange story that just popped up that the internet is kind of making fun of. Microsoft Gaming is actually asking developers, players, all sorts of people, why the hell don't we have games? And this is 100% serious, but today we're going to talk about it because it seems like Microsoft has realized the problem isn't just exclusives, but at this point, even third-party developers, even people that typically in the past would have put a game on like the Xbox 360, have completely abandoned the platform, and they don't understand why. Nobody cares about Xbox, but let's discuss. Hi, hope you're having a great day, and if you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. This video might be extra long because there's so much to pick apart here, but let's start with this quote. So Xbox is talking to developers, and they released a survey that said specifically for people that are making games for the PlayStation 5 and are choosing to skip the Xbox, why? If you aren't on Xbox, we'd love to know the reason. And honestly, if you're using our competitors' products and you have a great perspective, we want to learn from you. So a lot of people in the replies are saying, well, Xbox is liars, the saga continues. And it's interesting because this is a fair question. Why would you only put games on PlayStation? Now, there is an interesting extra bit of this, which is that a lot of people are pointing out the fact that Microsoft is just not selling systems. The sales of the Xbox itself continues to get worse and worse and worse. But also additionally, the advertising from Xbox themselves doesn't seem to champion the Xbox. It just seems like even if you put something, if you're like choices between developing a game for PlayStation or developing a game for Xbox, if you put it on PlayStation, you know, people are going to be opening the store or maybe watching a state of play. Like there is a chance of visibility that definitely, provably, measurably just does not exist on Xbox. But I also wanted to talk about this because it does seem like a lot of PlayStation fans, just in general, are also talking about the fact that it's weird that Xbox is even kind of asking this question. 4 years into the generation, and they have so few games, so little stuff to be excited about. It's very bizarre that Xbox is trying to figure out their faults this deep into such an expensive generation. And it is a good point here. PlayStation is better when Xbox is better. Like, Xbox is good competition. I mean, I think a big reason we're seeing stuff like the PlayStation 5 Pro and the lack of PlayStation first-party stuff is because Sony doesn't really have to try that hard. I mean, it just seems like, even as a person that does play a ton of PlayStation and stuff like that, it seems like Sony does better. They fight harder. They advertise harder. They just in general do better when someone's lighting a fire under their ass, and that's definitely not Xbox. But we're going to look at some more responses to it, but let me take a look at the article itself. So they had like a website that's specifically for trying to figure out different stuff about market trends and stuff like that. And recently there was a bunch of game developer L's in a row. Last year, there were multiple big headlines that I reported on that apparently a big problem with the Xbox ecosystem is how hard it is to make games for the Xbox Series S. A lot of people have been talking about this, but whenever you put a game on PlayStation 5, it just needs to run on a PlayStation 5. And whether you get the slim PS5 or the base model PS5, the launch PS5 or the revision PS5, they're all the exact same specifications. So it means that if you develop a game for PS5, you make it once. Whereas with Xbox, Microsoft directly contractually requires that the game play completely, perfectly on Xbox Series S, which is much weaker, and the Series X, which is a big old beefy boy, which means that honestly you're developing your costs to make a game for Xbox double right out of the gate for a lot tinier pool of players. But here's the other thing. I didn't have a chance to talk about this. There are studios that have made games for Xbox and then Xbox doesn't reply to them. This is absolutely true. There was a game called Enotria: The Last Song, and they were trying to put their game out on Xbox. They had an upcoming release date, and Xbox was not replying to their emails, to their messages. They were literally submitting the game to be posted on the store, and Microsoft just ignored it. They just did not put that game out. In fact, there was talks about at the time, Phil Spencer himself had to step in and get this game published. Phil Spencer is the head of Xbox. Like, this is not in a derogatory sense. That job is 18 steps below him. How many people failed at their job that Phil Spencer himself is having to go in there and get a game published? And this is from a person that is already done the work. It is completed and ready to go. It seems like Microsoft just does not understand how to run a gaming business, which is extra baffling to consider that we're so many generations deep. Like, it's not like it's their first console and they're just figuring it out. This isn't the Ouya. This is freaking Microsoft. They've done Xbox, the 360, the Xbox One. I mean, how many generations for them to still be trying to figure out how to make it easy for people to publish games? Now, a lot of people have been chiming in about the fact that it does seem like, just in general, Microsoft's biggest mess up when it comes to Xbox is Game Pass or bust. I actually think this is an incredibly good take, and I love the way he puts this, which is that there have been a bunch of studies about the fact that Microsoft gamers, people that play on Xbox, have been trained that everything will come to Game Pass eventually. The only thing you need is Game Pass. You don't ever have to buy games. You don't got to actually pony up any money. Just keep Game Pass forever. Now, this is clearly epically backfired. I mean, by their own just public numbers, Game Pass subscriptions are in the toilet. But additionally, I think it's interesting that there's now this mindset that if you see a cool indie game or a AA or something quirky or unique, don't buy it because it'll come to Game Pass. And if it doesn't come to Game Pass, then I guess Microsoft didn't think it was even worth their attention. Now, this has created a complete collapse of the market on Xbox. Like, tons of developers have talked about this, but people don't buy games on Xbox at this point. Like, the sales metrics are so abysmally low that people are like, okay, if I even spent $100,000 porting a game from PlayStation, which has already made me millions, I'm like, all right, I'll go ahead and put it on Xbox. Then a lot of times you'll still maybe not even make your money back of the porting cost on a completely completed game. It is wild to me that things have managed to get this far, but even the fact that so many Microsoft fans are pushing back on this, being like, okay, if you're telling us that nobody cares about Xbox, then why do you expect developers to care about Xbox? And I feel like this is a great point. A lot of people are bringing up the fact that, yeah, Microsoft is still coming out with stuff. They just released the Starfield DLC just a couple days ago, which I enjoyed apparently more than most of the internet. There's a new Starfield DLC. It's not free to Game Pass. I bought the Ultimate Edition of Starfield like an absolute idiot, so I had the DLC for free. I played it. I had a good time. A lot of people are hating on it, but I almost feel like the toxicity around Starfield, or even the lack of hype with upcoming stuff like Perfect Dark, I feel like it's beginning to signify that the platform of Xbox has become accidentally irrelevant. Now, let me really try and break that down, which is the fact that in the gaming industry, optics are incredibly important. How people perceive stuff is pretty much what's going to make you or break you more than anything else. If you say Xbox got no games, it's hard to break that stigma. The same way that I feel like PlayStation's biggest strength, for better and for worse, is that now they're considered the default console. And I will forever stand by that. I think PlayStation is what people who want to console game buy the most often. If you're looking for a good handheld, I feel like obviously the Nintendo Switch completely dominated that market. If you're more of a like super hardcore gamer that's got a big income, PC gaming, of course, is your go-to. But I just feel like when it comes to standard casual console gaming, which is honestly a huge chunk of the market, Sony has stomped the competition, and now Xbox doesn't know how to get back into the mindset of the casual gamer, which is what makes your billions. At this point, telling people, hey, subscribe to Game Pass, you get these games that maybe will hopefully be good, even though they're going to be like 5 hours long and not come out for 5 years. I feel like games like this, even screenshots and stuff like this, it feels like just in general, Xbox has put themselves into a very toxic corner, and the fact that they're even now beginning to ask the question of how did we mess up, this is way, 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 way too late. The last thing I want to say is something I read in this book, Console Wars by Blake Harris. Very, very good book. I think it got turned into a TV show or a documentary. I'm not sure about that. But at one point they talk about the rise of Nintendo after the death of Atari. Now, this is early 80s, late 70s kind of time period. But at one point, this lady talks about getting hired at Atari, which at that time is already making hundreds of millions of dollars. And she asked how they did their market research. And the heads of Atari said, "What's market research?" They were just making games. They were just printing games randomly. They would just greenlight a bunch of projects. Some of them would succeed, some of them would fail, and they had no idea what was making stuff good or bad. They had literally no crew. Now, obviously, Atari is dead now, but a lot of people think that's part of what caused the gaming crash of 1984, is that people just did not know what was successful. People were just dumping money into such a saturated market. I feel like Xbox is starting to remind me of that, where they have no idea what they're doing, good or bad. They have literally no instincts, no inclination. They're just shooting from the hip, which seems impossible, not only because they have the trillions of dollars of Microsoft behind them, but just the fact that how in 2024 can you be asking such basic questions like, why don't we have games halfway through the 9th generation? These have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts, because honestly, this is wild. I still stand with Pio. I think this take is the best, which is the fact that, honestly, at this point, Xbox is dead, and it's going to make PlayStation a lot worse because of it. This thing, it's downright depressing. Yeah. Thanks for watching this video. If you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And please keep dreaming. Oh man, I filmed this right as the camera's at 1%. 1%, I did it. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.